Why is it becoming a common trend for Black Africans to feel like their skin being lighter? It's more interesting.
The rates at which people are bleaching are getting higher and higher by day because society has said what should be beautiful and what is not beautiful,
It boosts your confidence. So that is what most ladies think.
I saw the challenge that you posted. A black Porsche, a white Porsche. Not many people like white cars. Like black looks more sexy, black looks beautiful. So fair skin, black skin is also fair skin.
But when we come to casting these strong Black women, we want to cast them for security guard roles. I don't know what ideas we're driving.
You start having different, like Nduko said, there's some places that don't even bleach. I am tempted to think about some other places as well.
Good evening. My name is Likuyani Eli, and this is the day that we get to discuss much more matters and a continuation of our series, Discrimination. And tonight we come to almost the end point of this series, but it doesn't necessarily mean it is the end of the discussion. So keep the conversation going. And of course, let's have this discussion even on the social media. My name is Likuyani Eli once again, and this, ladies and gentlemen, is Art in Heart. Tonight, we dip into nationality discrimination, for lack of better political words, rather political right or correct words. I'll call it nationality discrimination, but it is xenophobia. So what exactly is xenophobia? In studio, I have Noreen Ambata. Good evening, Noreen. How are you? Hi, Noreen.
Hi, Ellie. Good evening to you.
How are you doing?
Really fine. I said.
Welcome. It's great to see you after some long time away from Art in Heart. What have you been up to?
Don't worry. I don't want to talk about it right now, but I'm now okay. So let us get into Art in Heart and discuss what we got to discuss today.
Exactly. Let's discuss what matters most, nationality discrimination. Of course, I have Victoria and Katha. Good evening, Victoria.
Good evening, Ellie. How are you today?
Looking good and gorgeous as always. I don't know where the blue came from, but anyway, it's allowed.
Thank you very much. I don't know either, but you know what? We go with the flow, right? We go with the flow. Sometimes technology plays a hard one on us.
Great. Well, we got started, and it's great to have you, Victoria, despite your engagements, and thank you for making it to the desk. Lastly, I have a gentleman on the desk just to be able to measure out things. I have Rafael Mawazo all the way in Canada. Good evening, Mawazo.
Good evening, Ellie. Thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure. I've always been a fan of the show, and I'm glad to be part of the speakers today.
Thank you. Great to have you, sir. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into it. What is xenophobia from your own understanding, Victoria?
Xenophobia is the discrimination and also hate crimes and speech against people based off of their nationality. So just like we spoke about colorism and we spoke about gender discrimination and so on and so forth, it's the lack of job opportunities, the lack of other opportunities, much more things based off of the fact that one comes from a certain nationality. We know this all too well, especially from what we recently experienced in South Africa. But the one thing that we're going to dig deeper into today is the background of it, because it doesn't only start as fighting and going against each other, it starts from within us. And that's what we're about to dissect and we're about to discuss. And hopefully, we'll be able to find out how we also can be able to help through discrimination against nationality, or as it is called, xenophobia. For some, xenophobia is a very heavy word, but discrimination against nationality is xenophobia. If and we are going to explain how it is xenophobia.
Great. Let's have this rolling. And, I got some people running on the streets and they had something prepared for us. So let's get into it.
Hi, my name is Ladi.
Xenophobia, an ancient
thoughts
Greek
on
word, Romanized, xenos meaning stranger or foreigner, and phobos meaning fear. This is according to Wikipedia. Whereas xenophobia remains to be the fear of strangers or definitely foreigners with no particular reason and sometimes based on stereotypes. So we took a walk in the streets of Mombasa in Kenya to find out what they have to say about xenophobia.
Especially when you go to some high-end restaurants where there are a lot of foreigners. They tend to discriminate Kenyans when it comes to service delivery, when it comes to ordering food. You just notice the staff treat you in a different way as opposed to the foreigners who come
in terms of poverty levels. The image portrayed in the modern countries is usually of us being the keeper of the slums, and they perceive us to lack even the basic needs of living, which is also not very good.
I would say it's being primitive in this era. People should not be thinking and segregating people based on where they come from or what they think or what they had. Yeah, I think there should be equality, and I think technology has made things different, and so gone are the days where you judge people based on where they come from. Yeah, I think it's more personal. People behave the way they are because of what they want to be, but not because of where they come from.
It makes people not to exploit their full potential because someone will stereotype you regarding where you come from. Like, let's say, for example, I'll say I'm a Kenyan. So someone will say, oh, you're from Kenya. So that means you are a very corrupt person. So you see, when someone puts that in you, like your mindset changes, and in view to that, you cannot like exploit your full potential, and then you always try to play the victim in order to do what? In order to fit in.
There's a time I was applying for something. So nilikuwa follow up on Twitter, and then kufika time application, I was lucky to get the link. So wakati na apply, when I was almost done, so the last, like I was done already. So the last requirement was you're supposed to be either from Nigeria, South Africa, and some other country, and Kenya wasn't involved. So I felt so frustrated because this was something that I wanted, and why wasn't it available in Kenya, And I think it's a very bad, yeah, because it kills dreams, it kills a lot of things.
Ellie, you're muted. You've been speaking the whole time and you're muted.
My apologies. Am I audible enough now? Thank you. So we want to say my apologies are in fact to the rest of you. So we've heard what the young people there had to say on the streets, and it is interesting because they are actually touching on the most important factors that are affecting a lot of us when nationality discrimination has to come to play. Mawazo, what do you think of discrimination in terms of, let's start from illiteracy level? If you can unmute your microphone, please, because yes.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I had a lot of the comments from the streets of Mombasa, and unfortunately, these are comments that I know are echoed all over Africa. A lot of Africans will tell you they've had similar experiences, especially when dealing with people from overseas, people from different cultures. One thing I know for sure is that we as Kenyans, we define xenophobia a bit differently because there's a bit of confusion because some people confuse xenophobia with racism, with tribalism, but I think they all fall into the same kind of cocoon because they all are as a result of hatred or fear of something that we deem to be strange to us. And as a result of that, we try to shy away from that, or we try to put those things away from us so that it seems as if that is different, so it is bad. And most of the time, we do it by creating these labels. We label a certain group of people as bad because if we just refer to them, say for instance, if we decide that we're just going to call the Chinese people, then there's that humanity, there's that humanness that we were assigned to them. But then when we decide that you're going to refer to them in a derogatory term, we give them these funny names, and then automatically they stop being human and they become this thing that then we can now spew our hatred towards.
Mamazo, you saw there's a gentleman there that mentioned, especially when you go to the coastal region, there's always this tendency of having, what do we call rivalers come in based, and I think he put it more of, the skin color, which is not so well defined in terms of, when they speak out. However, do you think this comes into play in any way that people will tend to give other people priority because probably they are coming from other regions? Let's say American against a normal Kenyan.
That is very true. Actually, this kind of discrimination is actually very rife in Kenya, especially when it comes to the tourism sector and in the coast, especially that is where most of the tourism in Kenya is. We see when you go to the hotel industries, if you go into a hotel, if you are dark skinned, you're going to be given a different treatment rather than if you are a white person. Most of the waitresses will prefer serving a white person over serving an African, just because they have this feeling that the white person probably might tip better than an African. Whereas when it comes to that, sometimes you find that probably the African who's coming in is going to spend even way more money and stay even for a longer period, or even give a repeated service rather than this foreigner who's going to come in for a short period and then just disappear.
So what you're actually saying is that one can be xenophobic against their own countrymen, because what I understand by being xenophobic is that you are prejudiced and you discriminate against people from other nationalities. Is it possible to be xenophobic against your own nationality, or is that a different form of discrimination? Just to get it right.
Well, yeah. So my understanding of xenophobia is just that hatred or fear of something that you deem different. You can actually be xenophobic towards your own people. Even, for instance, in Kenya, like tribalism. Tribalism is actually a form of xenophobia. It is actually founded in xenophobia, where we see somebody from a different society is a bit more different toward me. That is why you see when you try to talk to someone from the Luo community and the Kikuyu community, for example, and somebody say, "Oh, we do not marry from that community," and for what reason? They won't really give you a particular reason other than the fact that, well, I was told by my family member that we're not supposed to do this.
However, in that moment, I would kindly like to just quickly disagree, because then that is where we're going into tribalism. So, just as you mentioned also earlier on, a lot of people usually confuse these terms, and I understand why people confuse them and get them interchange and use them interchangeably. It's because discrimination can happen in very many forms, and it's until now that we are finding names for the different discriminated levels of discrimination, knew that we could discriminate against nationalities and we could discriminate against tribes and we could discriminate against color and so on and so forth. But this has been happening centuries on and on and on, right? So when we come into xenophobia, one of the things that I do believe, and let me know if you're of the same mind, that I believe contribute a lot towards xenophobia is the fact that we have stereotypes towards nationalities. One of the ladies in the video said that once you mention that you're Kenyan, you're immediately associated to corruption. Once you mention you're Nigerian, you're immediately associated to 419 and being what are they called, these computer gang people, those ones, yeah, those ones who steal from people online, yeah, and pretend to be someone else. Once you say that you are, I don't know, Tanzanian, exactly, you are automatically associated to being slow. And you see, already we have negative connotations, just as we described in tribalism when we were discussing tribalism. We already have negative connotations towards different people of different nationalities. And nationality, gender, tribe, and so on and so forth are things that distinguish us and make us unique, I would say. I mean, I wouldn't want all of us to be Kenyan because there would be nothing unique about us and there would be nothing cultural and so on and so forth. But I do believe that what contributes towards xenophobia is the fact that we have negative connotations towards nationalities and negative stereotypes towards nationalities. What do you guys think?
Let me allow Noreen to come in because she's been backstage for a while. Noreen? She muted her microphone. Okay, go ahead, Noreen.
Thank you so much. I would really want to support what Victoria is saying because it is discrimination against nationalities, especially from the videos we just watched a few minutes ago. You've realized what other people are talking about. Being a Kenyan and being a person from a certain country makes you not to get opportunity the same as other people get. And even the same happens when you're looking for job opportunities, especially online jobs, whereby you are trying to apply an online job that is basically it is best in maybe in the US or in the in the UK. And the moment you mention you come from Kenya, like automatically, like how kwa picture, like you don't deserve that job. And that is why most Kenyans or most Africans would use a different identity, you know, just to identify themselves maybe as whites or someone from another country that is accepted in maybe in the UK or other countries outside Africa, so that to get that job and be able to work from home, that is online job. So I feel like this thing has gone to an extreme, and like we just need to be human, and we just live as human beings and know that we need each other.
But Nori, even if you talk about needing one another and trying to understand we are human at the end of the day, the fact remains that this is something that is not going nowhere anytime soon, especially for, I don't know, Mawazo, you've been about and around the world. What has been your experience in terms of, discrimination based on where you come from? Because when you mention Kenyan, the first thing that comes is the 2 billion that gets lost every single day in our coffers.
Yes, and you're absolutely correct, Ellie. It is pretty unfortunate, so to speak, when you introduce yourself and the first question normally that someone will ask you is, where are you from? And sometimes you hesitate to say where you're from just because they're going to immediately click on the stereotype of that country. So I'll give you an example that is actually always used with a lot of people is if I say, hi, I'm Mawazo, and they ask me where I'm from, I say, I'm from Kenya. And they say, oh, but you speak very good English. And you ask yourself, you say, well, I speak English because we speak English in my country. We've been taught English. And they say, oh, we didn't know that. So automatically this person has a stereotype just based on the color of my skin. They do not expect me to be able to communicate in English. So that is something that one of the things that we have to face constantly. And me, especially being an African man, I didn't know that I was black until I got here. And I realized that no, I'm not African, I'm not Kenyan, I'm actually a black man. So being stopped by the police, this is something that you may see on the TV and think, oh, this is something that happens in America, or this is something that happens in the movies. But it has happened to me. A policeman stopped me just because he saw an African man walking on the street, and they saw this is probably a criminal. So they stopped me and asked me for my ID. I asked what did they need my ID for, and they said, oh, it's just because we have had a report of someone who looks like you. Of course, I declined to give them my ID, and they didn't do anything. They just let me go. But you see, if you do not know your rights like that, it's very easy for people to just use that stereotype. And you see, and this is systemic, because you would expect that somebody in that kind of authority, a policeman, should be able to treat you better, to use better judgment. But you see, that still happens even in that kind of setting.
Yeah, but again, that goes more into the racism part of it. But the thing is, when you say I'm Kenyan, and I think Victoria can attest to that, if they do not associate you with being a very good athlete, you're basically probably running away from corruption or poverty. And somebody mentioned somewhere that and that's something you already said in your statements, that when somebody talks to you and you can communicate in proper English, they are wowed and they are wondering, how did you even learn that sort of English? So education discrimination, does it also apply when it comes to the systems that we have around the world, Noreen?
Thank you so much. Yes, it does. And right now, when you do most applications, maybe you want to go study in a different school, maybe outside Kenya or any other country, you find that they are only specific with a certain individuals. Like, you must come from this country. That is one of the qualifications. Then others can follow. And this thing, I don't know why people look at blacks as they're not smart upstairs. I don't know how that happens, because black people got brains, but once you're associated with black, you're associated with where you come from, then automatically you have nothing in the brain. And this is so wrong. Like, I don't know why that is happening, but honestly, this is so much, this is draining us so much. And we find that you get an opportunity and you really want to study about something, and that is where your passion is, but now everything is drained, and you're left like you're left hopeless, and you're left like, okay, now these people think I don't know anything. But in real sense, you're just blessed with your own brain, and people just can't see it, and you can never get a chance anywhere else because of where you come from, because of the stereotype of where you're coming from. And it is not just good.
Okay, fine. I mean, we cannot discuss that until son comes home, but just for us to understand how heavy this is, let's take a look at what happened in South Africa a few years ago.
No, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm scared too much.
They burned the shop on Sunday. Then in the afternoon again, they went upstairs again and put it on. Put another fire again. To see how heartless somebody is. You burn this place, it's not enough for you. You still go back again. Show me the love. Tell me, how does love goes in there? There's no brotherly love there. We are all one Africa.
We are tired of being beaten every day. We're all Africa. Why must we be afraid to go to South Africa? Which South Africa has ever been beaten in Zambia? Which one? We want the ambassador to address us. We are tired. Enough.
I am not in support of violence, but Nigerians are the most accommodating people in Africa. For them to have reacted at this time, they seem to have been pushed to the wall.
People have lost their lives, and many have been injured. Families have been traumatized. Livelihoods have been destroyed. No amount of anger and frustration and grievance can justify such acts of wanton destruction and criminality.
They have to say something, this government, for us.
Yes, I think I do not need to explain further on those clips. And they just speak about the dangers when we push it too far. I mean, we can be different, but does our difference of nationality or that passport that you carry around have to determine how you're treated? Back to you, Victoria.
I mean, absolutely not. It doesn't determine how you're supposed to be treated. And that's why we have a huge problem, especially around Africa, in terms of treating each other and knowing how we should live with each other. So, for instance, you have here in Kenya where you have people who have completely secluded Nigerians because they just feel that Nigerians should just stay there. They have their own ideas about Nigerians. So, anytime you ask somebody about a Nigerian, they're always like, "Oh, those people, they're this and that and that," and often it's not on the positive aspect. And let's not even only talk about Africa. Look at Europe, for instance. You have a lot of the Western European countries that look down on, or rather dislike, the Eastern European people. So you'd have, for instance, you go to Scandinavia, you go to Germany, and once you mention that you're from Poland, you're from Russia, you're from Kazakhstan, you have automatically something very, very different in terms of how they view you, in terms of how they think about you, in terms of how they treat you as well. Most of the European countries have the Eastern Europeans working for minimum, less than minimum wage, simply because that's them and it's a privilege to be here. Hence, why should we treat them any better? And that's a problem. That's a very, very big problem. The same thing happens in our countries where we literally want to misuse other nationalities simply because, oh, they are from there and they need to be happy that they're in our country. And once they don't act accordingly, we will burn whatever they have going on. And this is not a right way of thinking, or rather, we'll start cutting them off. There were so many reasons and catalysts towards what was happening in South Africa, so many of them. And one of them was actually that people from other countries are coming in and taking over in terms of jobs, in terms of, because a lot of people come into, when you migrate into another country, you of course want to do your best in that country. And often when people migrate into countries, it's because they often think that that country is far much better than the country that they originate from, and they want to do much better. They want to fight to be the best. And you realize that the inhabitants, the original inhabitants of that country, wouldn't take it too well to have individuals who are working extra hard or who are on the top being people who are not from their country. You understand? So that now becomes a problem. So that's one of the catalysts of the problem you have in Europe, where Eastern Europeans will come in and they will fight for jobs, they will fight for positions, and so on and so forth. They will work minimum wage, but they will still work their way up, and so on and so forth. And the Western Europeans are like, hey, 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 this is our country, and so on and so forth. Now, what do you guys think would be a solution to this? Because it is quite a heavy topic and it is quite a heavy discussion. But how are we able to get to a point where we're able to coexist and coexist in peace? Whether I'm living in Nigeria or a Nigerian is living in Kenya, how am I able to bring in the balance and find a way of saying that, hey, we're all Africans, even Europeans, hey, we're all Europeans, like how can we live together?
Victoria, I want to actually find out how we can live together. But equally, I want us to come back to Kenya. And as you've said, the most important reason that people will immigrate to other or migrate to other countries, it's because they are looking for what is better, or what we call, quote in quotes, I say greener pastures. But have you heard of stories of, especially, and I dare say this, a lot of people hiring um, house helps or domestic helpers from Uganda into Kenya? I don't know if
Yes.
Mawazo, you're conversant with this, and if you are, what is generally the feel when these people are being hired? Your microphone, sir. Great.
Keep forgetting about that. So it's very interesting that you actually brought that up, the issue of hiring house helps from Uganda, because I know that is a practice that has actually been in Kenya for quite a long time, actually. Um, And recently, I actually watched a documentary. I don't know if it was the BBC or Al Jazeera, and they were talking about house helps, Kenyan women in the slums of Nairobi, and they're complaining about these house helps who come in from Uganda or from other poorer African countries, and they are being hired, and just because they are able to agree to be paid less than their Kenyan counterparts, just because they know that most of the time they're in Kenya illegally, and if they do not accept the little money that they're being offered, then they will not have any other opportunities. Not even forgetting about the police harassment that they are facing constantly. And a lot of, now this has actually made a lot of the Kenyan ladies in the slums, who are actually also depending on the mama fua positions, and now they're competing directly against that. So you see now, when these ladies are talking about, oh, we do not want these Ugandans here, and to some extent, you can actually say they are justified in saying that we do not want the Ugandans here, just because they also have mouths to feed. But on the other hand, you have to look at the humanity side of it, is that everybody has a mouth that they need to be fed. And where is the balance? Where can we get that balance where we are all competing fairly in this field, and everybody is able to get a piece of the cake? Because you find that the root cause of xenophobia is normally the economic one, especially when the native people of that country feel that foreigners are coming in and they're taking away our opportunities. This is what causes a lot of that animosity against people from different countries.
Thank you, Mawazo. And I want to invite Noreen. Noreen, fortunately, you have had some experience when it comes to interaction with the Chinese, based on the fact that you teach Mandarin or Chinese. I don't know how to call it. So why is it that Kenyans are very stereotype when it comes to the idea of Chinese around them? When they see the Chinese walking around, the first thing they'll have to check if their dog is missing. And how does that correlate with the feeling? Yes, Victoria, I know you do not understand this, but let's have Noreen talk about it. The foods and the culture of the other people that come into your country, and you feel like they are endangering on your cultures and your way of life. Noreen.
That is what we have in mind. Like Chinese eat anything and everything. they can even eat you. That is what people think, and that is what
But
they
they
believe.
do, they do. Aren't, wait, Noreen, don't they actually eat everything? They're the ones who started Corona with with eating a bat.
Okay, okay, okay.
Well, well,
That's
Vic,
what is said. That is what is
Vic.
said. That is
Okay,
what is
That
said.
is up. That is up for discussion.
that is up for
All right.
discussion. Indeed, that's up
I
for
know,
discussion.
I know, but that is what is that is what is said. That was actually a situation where they said that it was a bat that was eaten in China. So now you're like, hey, you guys, and I've looked through some of the foods that they eat. Noreen, please.
For the simple reason that that
So
hasn't been scientifically proven, I'd like
Hmm.
to dispute it.
Well, there was a lot of issues surrounding it, including pangolins. But let's just find out from
There.
Noreen about these
Yeah.
dogs and this, you know, so-called fear of
okay.
the Chinese.
Well, now this is what as I was saying, this is what people know. Non-Chinese people, this is what they know. Like Chinese eat anything and everything, and them maybe that is what they do. I don't want to conclude that that is what they do, but if you go to China or if you speak to Chinese, there's some information that they don't they don't really disclose. Like it is with them and for them alone. They don't like sharing what belongs or what they do in their country or anything else, especially things to do with food. If you ask them if they eat dogs, watakwambia, what are you talking about? But in real sense, that is what they do, you know. And now that we know they eat that, they'll never admit it. But wao wenyewe kwa wenyewe, they know what they do. On this other hand, when we come to Kenya and we see Chinese coming in, kitu ya kwanza, first of all, Kenyans already, sorry to say this, but tumeshajulikana, we can do nothing. We have doctors here, we have engineers here. Watu wameenda ng'ambo kusoma, they have come back, they have brains, they can do anything. But what do our governments do? Everything. Itoke China, like engineers to come from China, wakuja waunde barabara, wakuja waunde SGR. Yet we have professionals in Kenya. So like even in our own country, we are seen as we cannot do it. We are not we are not trusted. You're not believed into doing that. And that is where that beef starts. Like, okay, when ni mchinku, utaniambia, like unakula dogi, mi nakula ng'ombe. What will you tell me?
Okay, so ni bigiji imekulwa na ndongi na
Na
ng'ombe ikakulwa na nyasi. Now,
I
I mean,
actually have something to say, Ellie.
okay, go ahead, go ahead.
Ellie, I'm gonna disrupt you, and this is one thing that I want you to take into perspective. One of the things that I've noticed is that when it comes to, and I'm so sorry because this is gonna sound so wrong, but I have no better way to put it. When it comes to the lighter society, the white society, we often have positive connotations to them. Now, the first thing that people think about when they think Chinese is not the fact that they eat dogs. Today, I was actually discussing with someone, and the first thing that they said was the fact that they're so good at building roads. They're so good at building that and that and that. They're able to do this and that and that. The COVID vaccines are coming from the white community, and they're so good at this and that and that. When we discuss our Nigerians, we are discussing how they're good at fraudulence. They're good at frauding people. Always, if you look at our community and as a people, and I'm sorry to say this, but it is the truth. When we look at our community, we so much hate ourselves and we so much place ourselves at a disadvantage. And going off of what Noreen just stated, we're so good at so many things, but we often tend to discriminate against each other and often put ourselves down for the white people to be able to stand higher. And we often do not have negative stereotypes towards them. We often have positive stereotypes towards them. At least the first things that come into our mind is not the fact that they eat dogs or whatever, is the fact that they're smart, is the fact that they're good at engineering because they've built roads in our countries that are super good. but simply because we haven't been able to give our own engineers the opportunity to do so. Hence, we can't see anything that is really, really good. But I do. But when we see our engineers, we think, for example, if I give the contract to a Kenyan engineer, I'll probably have to pay much more money. Let's say, for instance, they have to be corrupt to some degree and they would want to eat from the money. Hence, I wouldn't want to employ a Kenyan engineer to do this work. I'd rather give it to a Chinese who wouldn't ask for more than what I should pay them, or I'd rather give it to a Polish simply because they would probably work for less money. Hence, I would keep more money in my pocket. But already the stereotype around if I give a black person, or rather a Kenyan, this contract, then the Kenyan would execute, but they would execute at a higher level simply because there's a chai, there's a tea money that needs to come in. However, we with that mentality, we block so many things for our own community to be able to rise, and we place ourselves at a huge disadvantage. So, Noreen, what you were saying about it is really true. However, I do believe that we actually do cause it ourselves, and we always overhype and over glorify the white community compared to our own community. Nobody would employ a Tanzanian because they think that they're too slow to execute.
Yeah, but I mean, Victoria, even as we discuss this, I mean, I found an interesting point that Noreen was equally raising and which you've touched on when it comes to the job market. And let me bring you in, Mawazo, because you are aware of when things went south and we had to bring in doctors from Cuba. You saw what kind of you know, and I mean, the kind of trembles that happened with our local doctors. Do you think the fact that the policies and policy decision taking do not, quote unquote, involve the people too exhaustively, does it affect how locals will look at other people coming in from other countries and taking their jobs?
It is definitely true that there's a systemic angle to it, whereby if the systems are put in place to enable participation of the local communities in determining how migration works, which job streams immigrants can take in a particular country, then it definitely plays can play a big role in the integration of peoples from different communities. A very good example of what Noreen had said, just talking about the Chinese coming in to do the roads and doing other jobs in Kenya. I will say, particularly when you're talking about the engineering jobs, and this is a contract that has been awarded to a Chinese firm, say, to come and to conduct a study or to do a project in Kenya, then you expect, yes, that the engineer, the top engineer will come from China because this is a Chinese company, but then we do not expect the laborers to also come from China. We expect the laborers to be Kenyan because this is a project that is being done in Kenya. It's supposed to benefit Kenyans. So part of the benefit to Kenyans is creating those jobs. But then when we see that the people who are actually laying the tracks are Chinese, and yet we have so many young people in Kenya who are unemployed, then that will definitely make the locals be very upset and want to attack the Chinese, as what you saw happen in Narok. Because the locals are wondering, why do we have Chinese people coming all the way from China to come just to lay trucks? Something, any hukumu mtu wa mkono, basically. You know, when things like that happen, then definitely it's going to create animosity. And that happens even here in Canada, because when you're coming here and you're making up an application to come here, they have to check your job stream. Are you just coming here to do a job that any other Canadian will be able to do? What are you bringing that is going to be beneficial to this country? What value are you adding to this country that our locals will not be able to do it? So it's the same thing that we have, the same factors we have to be applying in our countries when we are inviting locals to come in, or when we're inviting foreigners to come in, that is is, are they coming to take away from the jobs that any other Kenyan will have done? And if you see in South Africa, what happened is the people in South Africa, because they just came out of apartheid just a few years back, 1994, they haven't had a very big chance to be able to get away from that. Like, for instance, just getting a basic education that will give them that step forward to be able to compete at a level stage with people from other African countries who had actually had more opportunities at education, more opportunities at gaining job experiences. So someone goes into South Africa, they're going to take a job and start doing that job, and a South African looks and says, I'm not able to do that job simply because I do not have this kind of experience, or I don't have this job opportunity because I do not have this educational level. It, of course, will make them bitter. And that is why the South African government began this policies called a Black economic empowerment, where they were allowing companies that were giving more opportunities to Black South Africans to gain skills and to gain experience in their work environment. They were given more opportunities to participate in government tenders, because then they're seen to be helping to build the nation and to bridge the gap between the different parts of the community of South Africans. Back to you, Ellie.
Thank you. And Noreen, you want to add something on that before we take it to the next level? Go ahead.
Yes. Just in addition to what both Victoria and Mawazo have talked about, and we are still on this Chinese issue, we're looking at most of the companies that are in Kenya. Just look, especially along Mombasa Road, we have so many companies that belongs to the Chinese. Who are the CEOs? Chinese. Who are the managers? CEO. Who are the managers? They're the Chinese. Now, the employees, ni akina nani wa Kenya. And when you go there, you get frustrated. There was a point I went to a certain job in a certain interview somewhere in Gong Road, and I met this Chinese, and it is a company. I am not comfortable in mentioning the name of the company. So this guy, they were offering me a very good amount, and talking of the amount and negotiating and all that, we reached to a point. He told me, if you want this amount, then we need to go with you in bed. I just said yes. Like, it can be so frustrating. It can be so bad, especially to women. Like, it is so bad. It was in around 2017. Like, I was so excited. I'm going to this job. Like, I'm at this age and I'm going to earn this amount of money. Like, nilisema tu wacha ikae. And that is how I'm never interested even in working in any Chinese company. I'm not saying all of them are bad, but most people who work there, especially the Chinese speakers, especially the translators, they get so much frustrated even when they work with the Chinese. Then looking at the type of jobs that they advertise, they say we want a Chinese a driver who can speak Chinese. So those are two jobs. One job is driver. The second job is a translator. What do you want? Then they say salary 50,000. Okay, unataka driver ama unataka translator. That is, they want to use you. Just ask me, like, let me ask you, in China, ni Africans wangapi wako na companies China ziko huko, and now they're employing the Chinese there? None. Like, I don't know if there is, but as far as I'm concerned, no. And now in Kenya, companies are overflooded, and Kenyans, we are always there. We're working for the Chinese. We are not given an opportunity to grow ourselves. We are always there kwa kampuni ya mchinku. Akikufrustrate, akisikia anataka kufuta job, you're done. And he just wakes up one morning and tell you off. And that's it.
Noreen, we can discuss about the Chinese, but that's really not why we are discussing this. But I think you're discussing based on your experiences, and that's the whole purpose of having this discussion. It's the experiences that we have had individually and as a society. And picking on that is purely not to tell a particular line of story. It is basically to explain the experiences that these individuals have had to go through. So definitely, if you're joining us, this is Art in Heart. I'm your host, Likuyani Eli, and tonight we are discussing matters xenophobia. And for those who do not know what xenophobia is, of course, the simplest way to put it across is discrimination based on the fact that you have fear of a foreigner. I don't know how they do it now in Canada, because some time back, Moazo, if you can check your mic, I'm aware in America they used to write on the ID card, they used to write it alien. Is it the same way in Canada?
No, they don't do that. But they did used to do that quite a while back, particularly, and this was particularly with the Chinese, the Japanese, and the Indians. So the Chinese here, when they came to Canada, they came a very long time ago. They came and settled in Canada a very long while back, and they came mostly to help construct the Great Canadian Railway tracks. And when they came here, of course, they decided to settle here. So, of course, they came here and there were very many, and they were taking a lot of job opportunities from even the white folk. And so the politicians decided against it, and they introduced a law that actually prevented Chinese from coming here, and attacks. They even introduced a tax, and one of the worst ones was they actually said that if a Chinese person is to come to Canada, if a ship is sailing to Canada, if for every 250 tons, there should only be one Chinese, just to be able to reduce the number of Chinese who are coming to Canada. So this is part of the Canadian history that a lot of people will not hear about, but it's actually something that happened. Basically, Canada is relatively better than most countries when it comes to human rights and trying to ensure that the multicultural society, people embrace the idea of multiculturalism, and people embrace different cultures and are living harmoniously with each other. They are not at 100% just yet, of course, because we are humans and different humans have different biases. So because of that, not yet. We're not yet there. However, the idea of having the alien ID cards, I know that is definitely a Kenyan thing, because if you come to Kenya as an immigrant and you get the ID, it's actually called an alien ID. So, yeah, I've not seen that here at all.
Well, so basically what you're saying, some history actually put some sort of discrimination stamp on you without definitely knowing that it's going to follow you. I want to discuss more on those matters, but let's take a break and we'll be right back to see what can we do to change the situation. Of course, this is Art in Heart, and we continue with the discussion.
So it is alarming at how much people are separating and divorcing, because people have started taking relationship to be just, people don't take the value and the vice that was there before. And when us we were growing up, separation, our parents never used to separate. They never used to go separate ways because it was a taboo, it was forbidden, it was unacceptable. In fact, in my Kikuyu tradition, if a man decided to take us another wife, he was not allowed to leave his first wife. He could take another wife but still maintain his first wife as his wife. So there wasn't so much of breakups that are there that we are seeing today.
I do agree with Nyokabi. Just to put it into perspective, 48% of all first marriages end in divorce, and that 79% of women and 89% of men usually have that opportunity to go and remarry. 68% of these remarriages always include kids.
You correct the behavior, you beat the behavior and not the child. But when it comes to punishment, you're attacking the person. I'm punishing you because you did 1, 2, 3 things.
If the couples that are involved in the family are able to show love unto each other and be able to commit unto each other and be able to communicate openly and truthfully, then the kids will be able to emulate the parents, and we shall be having a well-blended family.
Yes, 48% is a big number. I will not dispute with you that 48 is quite a huge number. But then again, that's the families that end up in divorce. These are relationships that are founded on the wrong foundation. These are relationships that goalposts shift inside the relationship. These are relationships of people who are not fully committed to the relationship. One party is not, the other party is. And these are relationships of people who just don't want to do the hard work.
Definitely, that is the family edition every Saturday from 7:30 East, 7:30 p.m. Central European Time, and of course 9:30 p.m. Kenyan time. Join me and Nyokabi Kamau tomorrow as we talk about family in-laws and childbearing. So back to the topic of the night, and we have Mawazo Rafael all the way in Canada, Victoria and Katha in Nairobi, Kenya, and of course Noreen Nambata in Nairobi, Kenya. Once again, good evening, my panelists, and we are talking about xenophobia. So let's see on how we can solve this, because we cannot lay a magical solution to it. But what solutions are available to us, starting with you, Victoria?
I think first of all, getting to interact. I mean, the world is getting globalized, and we had a discussion on whether globalization will harm the different individual cultures and so on and so forth. However, I do think that to some degree it also contributes to us being able to understand each other very much well. So, not only in terms of business and so on and so forth, but also from a social point. Now, being able to also educate ourselves on people's what's it called cultures is also very very important, where we can be able to teach people and learn from other cultures instead of having stereotypes already from the get-go. Now, people can be corrupt in Kenya. However, it's not everyone that's corrupt in Kenya. People can be frauds in Nigeria, but it's not everybody that's a fraud. There's so much to being Nigerian than just fraud. There's so much being towards being Kenyan than being a fraud. There's so much towards being Tanzanian than being a fraud. If you all know, one of the dollar, I can't remember whether it's a millionaire or billionaires in East Africa, is Tanzania. And I'm sure that he didn't come to being Tanzanian. He's not Kenyan, he's not Ethiopian, he's not whatever, he's Tanzanian. And he did not get to being Tanzanian simply off of being slow and lazy, because that's a stereotype that we have towards Tanzanians, to be honest. And not all are like that, and so on and so forth. So when we get to understand people's cultures and we get to understand the positive aspects of them, then we definitely get to a point of getting to positive stereotypes, and not only positive stereotypes, but getting to a positive mindset towards people of different cultures and different nationalities, and also makes us love them better and love their uniqueness. And that's how I believe that we can be able to start.
Noreen, please, if you want to take it over.
Hey, Ellie, I would really want to. Hey, mimi unajua supporting it. I really want to support what Victoria is saying, and like right now, we know, like, let us accept and appreciate everyone that comes from whichever country it is, because as we are looking at ourselves, like, we got different abilities and we have an opportunity to do things even better. So we cannot really stick into the xenophobic behavior because you're just judging someone from where they come from or from what they're able to do. So we really need to appreciate everyone, just as I said, and yeah, like that is, I don't know if there is anything that I want to say about that, but that's it. Appreciate, and appreciate.
As we appreciate it, Mawazo, people are asking what happened to you. Can you please speak to the nation, address the nation?
What happened to me? What do you mean? Well, I'm just going to talk about how to end xenophobia amongst African countries, first of all, because I feel that once we are able to remove that stereotype and that kind of hatred between African nations, we are able to grow and be the power that we are supposed to be. If all African countries embraced Pan-Africanism and we saw each other as brothers and sisters, we saw each other as brother nations, sister nations, then we will be able to actually thrive. We will be able to be at the helm of the world. Because why is it that if I want to go to South Africa, as a Kenyan, as an African, I have to get a visa? And yet, when I decide, hey, today I want to go to France, I apply for the Schengen visa, and I want to go to Belgium when I'm in France, I don't have to apply for another visa. I will just cross the border and go. But when I'm in South Africa, when I'm from Kenya, I get a visa to South Africa. Then I say, oh, I want to go and check out the Victoria Falls in Zambia. I will not just be able to board a flight and go to Zambia. I have to get another visa to go to Zambia. This is what makes us feel that we are different when we are not. It is only when we are in Africa that we see each other as different, because once we are out here, we look at each other and I do not see South Africa, I don't see Zambia, I don't see Uganda. I only see, oh, that's an African, that's my brother. Why can't we behave the same way when we're back home? You see, the founding fathers of most of the African countries, Kwame Nkrumah, Mandela, Patrice Lumumba, Mwalimu Nyerere, these were all Pan-Africans. When they were talking about Africa, they were talking about the African nation. They were not just talking about the country and talking about other African countries. They were always about the brotherhood of the African nation. If we embrace this from the 60s, because we left this in the 70s, and then we decided we're going to go after capitalism and we're going to go out against each other, that is what broke us. But if we had stuck to this from the beginning and forget about these borders, if I want to go to live in Uganda, I should just be able to cross over into Uganda. As long as I have a Kenyan ID, I go there and I start a business and I marry a Ugandan and live there. That I should be able to do as an African, because we are all in Africa. But this idea of having these barriers against each other is what makes us think that we're different when in reality we aren't. I know this because we were listening to a song, a South African song. Now that every Kenyan is into piano, we're listening to this South African song, and we hear a lot of words that actually from the Bantu language. We hear a lot of words that I tell my wife, hey, this is actually a Luya word, you know. This is a Luya word, and she says, "What? Are you serious?" The other day we were hosted by a friend of ours from Egypt, and they said, "Oh, we want to prepare for you a very nice dish of molokhia." And we said, "Oh, what is that?" She said, "It's a very nice dish. In Egypt, we love this food." And when she presented it was mrenda. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? And still, we look at each other as different. This is some things that just blow your mind.
Okay, Mawazo, you've really made me think wide. I mean, so we have things that are common that we do not embrace. Vicky, music and art, what role can it play to actually, bring that synergy and remind us? Because piano apparently everybody's jumping to the beat. I equally saw it the other day. There was this lady dancing to it on TikTok, and I was like, wow, okay, this is beautiful. And then when the Jerusalem. Say again?
You have TikTok, Ellie.
No. They posted it on TikTok and shared it on Facebook. I am not on TikTok.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
I'm not. You can search anywhere around the world. You'll never find me there. I don't think that's for my son, probably. So if we go back to what I was saying before Vicky made my train of thoughts disappear, I was saying, when we look at music, art, and all those forms of art, they play a role. And I think the biggest that I've seen is despite the language, the nationality, the race, whatever you want to call yourself, music has always had a way to join us. You can always jump to a beat that you have no words that you understand. What is that uniqueness about music and art, Victoria?
I think one of the things is just that we just there are ways of communicating and communicating oneness and communicating Ubuntu, as I love calling it. Ubuntu is I am because we are. And this is with food, this is with music. And when I'm listening to music, one of my favorite rappers is Sakodi. And I don't understand what Sakodi says. But when you find me rapping in Ghanaian language, it's crazy. I don't understand anything he's saying, but I'm there. I'm rapping with Sakodi as well. You find that people from Nigeria and Zimbabwe and South Africa don't know what Diamond Platinum is saying, but they're all singing in Swahili. Some of them don't even know what Otile Brown is saying. The Chagola Moyo song was even being played at weddings in the world, and they weren't really understanding completely what he was saying. But they were there, they were supporting it, they were supporting the music. Art definitely plays a role in terms of uniting us and getting us a step further into Pan Africanism, as Mawazo was talking about. However, we still are and have a very, very long way to go. It doesn't come from me beatboxing to Sakodi or singing to Afrobeats and so on and so forth to get there. However, that is a step forward. There are people who can't, when they hear that I am so much into Afrobeats, they don't even understand why. For instance, they don't get how I can love Nigerian music or Ghanaian music and Afrobeat music. Most of them are all like, "Oh, we need to support our Kenyan music," which I also understand. And don't get me wrong, I really really love Kenyan music. However, I feel that it's not that big of a difference. And that's one thing that unites us as people, and we can be able to learn from each other's culture. We can be able to learn each other's languages. And as I stated before, that is one of the things that can be able to bring us together as people and be able to make us understand each other better. And that's a step forward. We still have a very, very long way to go. And like I also mentioned, the other thing is food. I love my plantain so much. And I love the egusi soup. I really love these things. I really love what's this called? This from Congo. I really love it. It's like this. It's not a banana, but I don't know if it's a cassava, but it's not banku. Banku is Nigerian. It's something
Plantain,
else.
plantain.
No, not plantain. It's something. There's something Congolese, and they make it so well. And I really, really love it. And I love our pilau. I love our chapati. And when you get to see other Africans, they ask, "What's your staple food and what the food?" And I really love the chapati. I really love the pilau. And I really love this and that and that and that. You see, already there we have a connection. However, when you go to other situations, why are we causing divide and not remembering the fact that I was sitting with my Nigerian friend and eating a goosey soup and okra soup and okay, I don't like okra, but pepper soup and why don't I remember that? Why don't I hold on to that? Why don't I hold on to the fact that I still fight with my Nigerian friend about fufu and ugali, about which one is better? Ghanaians and Nigerians still fight about their jollof fries, which one is better. But that actually brings them together in terms of learning each other's cultures and how they make their jollof fries differently. But you realize that when it comes to the serious matters, when it comes to things that actually do matter in terms of progress, they forget these things. They forget these little things that actually make us there. So towards your question, yes, art, food, and stuff like that really makes us unite and makes us get to a step forward. However, there's a very, very long way to go. That's just what I personally feel. Somebody asked
Um,
me if I don't love Mokimo. No, I don't like Mokimo actually.
Yeah, I need to add on what Nkatha has talked about. And Ellie, you previously asked about how music and art, the question of music and art. So, first of all, we look at the role of music. Music is meant to music is meant to make us think. It is meant to make us cool down. It is meant even for us to connect. We connect in one way or another, even in cultures that different nationality have, and everything, like every nation, whatever nations are doing, like it really connects. Let's look at, for example, this guy Eshuchi. Look at his music. Look at the way he's talking about an African woman. Look at the way he's talking about how they are cooking, and even the tribes in Kenya, how they're associated to different things that they're doing. And this music is not just meant for Kenya. It is meant like for everyone else to listen to it. And once you once you get interested with such a music, once you get interested with an artist like Eshuchi, if even if you're a Nigerian, utatafuta Mkenya, or you look for someone who understands it, or hii inamaanisha nini, because the beats, oh my god, they are very nice, and you really want to know what they mean. So like for that other person, they will learn, like, yeah, now why can't I marry a Kenyan, so it is meant to connect with one another. So looking at also the type of the way we are supposed to do things, still music, it will make you make decisions. So wise decisions. Are we supposed to kill? Look at Eric Wainaina. That time that we had clashes in Kenya, and he came up with this song. you know so like like you can really look at the role of music in our society, in our countries and different countries, and now they bringing us together. It is a source of unity. Thank you, Ellie.
Source of unity and inspiration, of course, to make better choices. Mawazo, do you think probably if we have as a country to embrace policies that do not only secure the well-being of foreigners coming to invest, but in equally secure the well-being of the locals, it can improve how people relate with other nationalities, other than just feeling this competition for the business or the entrepreneur kind of space.
Well, speaking as an immigrant myself, it is important for all countries to embrace policies that are not overly protectionist, that we just want to protect our people, but policies that are more based on mutual relationships, mutual benefits, things that if you create a policy, look at both sides of the coin. Is it going to benefit? How is it going to benefit us as a country? How is it going to benefit our citizenry? And at the same time, how is it going to help us to collaborate better with our neighbors and other nations? Because right now, what has happened is we have seen in the recent years a rise of extremist and protectionist politicians. What I'm talking about is people are really shifting to the far right. Look at Trump and his America First ideology. It was, in a sense, it's supposed to be a positive thing because, well, every president should have the interests of their country first. But then it shouldn't say that now that we're saying America first, we are going to be against everybody else. Because unfortunately for him, that is the gospel that he spread. It is supposed to be America first. Yes, we're going to say Kenya first, then everybody else after. We're not going to say Kenya first and everybody else stay away. If we do that, it's going to be detrimental to every other Kenyan who is not in Kenya, because you forget that Kenyans are not just in Kenya, we are spread out in all other countries. And if everybody else were to say that, then it would mean that we're all going to be kicked out and go back to Kenya. That's never going to work, because the world is a global village. We are supposed to be collaborative in our approaches. And once we are able to create that balance, it's very difficult, but once we're able to create that balance where we allow people to move into our countries, we allow other people to go into other countries, then we will be able to be better at ending the world's problems. Because you find that right now, a problem that is in America is going to affect us. Because, say for instance, right now, the problem with America and China, and they said, oh, we are banning Huawei. And Google says, well, now Huawei, if you have a Huawei phone, we're no longer going to support the Android platform. How many Kenyans have Huawei phones? How many Kenyans depend on Google applications? If you're no longer going to be be allowed to operate on the Android platform on a Huawei phone, then basically you're being cut off from other people or from some applications that you wanted to use. This is something that is happening away in America. It's a war between America and China, but it's impacting us as Kenyans. So we have to understand that every single decision that is made within countries has a ripple effect. So we have to be very mindful when we are making such decisions, and in our interactions with people from different nations. We always have to have this approach where we are benefiting from each other in a mutual way.
I will call it friends with benefits, but otherwise people will think otherwise. So let's stick to benefiting from others mutually, because that's what we're talking about. At the end of the day, we need one another. And that's why if you go back to South Africa, the famous late Lucky Dube say different colors, one people. So if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. So why not remember that we are just one people? Tonight, we will end this discussion quite early, but of course, on an easy mode, and of course, with a lot of reflection. I want us to take a moment to just think about the people that we lost since Corona was first announced officially in Kenya sometime last year, 2020, on the 13th of March. It's been a year now, and a lot of things have happened, including, losing people in the profession in terms of a medical industry and medical profession. For those that travel, we know there's one interesting and of course committed pilot by KQ that made his repatriation for people from the New York, and he landed, and then the following weekend he was gone. And we have some of you who have families and friends, neighbors, that you've lost them during this period. I want us to take a moment and just pray for those people if you can pray. And if you cannot, just take a moment of silence for the next 1 minute, then we can shift gears. Yes, we wish all the families, friends, around the world that have lost their loved ones during this period of Corona, the best. Especially, I'm talking in reference to Kenya, because the first time it was announced, it was sometime back in March 2013. And things changed. But for all of us that are here,
2019.
say again?
2019 early. You said 2013, 2019.
No, it was 2020.
2013.
I don't know why I was thinking. Actually, it's 13th of March. Sorry about the mix-up. Thank you so much for the correction.
It was
13th of
13th
March.
of it was 13th of March that we had our first quarantine situation where people had the lockdown. But it was actually the 5th of March that we had the first case in Kenya. So the lockdown is and the curfew is celebrating 1 year.
In a year.
Yes, it's celebrating. It's been a year since Kenya had their curfew in place. And Uhuru Kenyatta, Honorable His Excellency
The
Uhuru
president.
Kenyatta, the president, actually spoke today, and he extended the curfew. And yeah, it's 1 year since now the curfew has been in place, and 1 year and 1 week since we had the first COVID case.
Great. With those numbers, I want us to remember that they are not just numbers. They are people that were lost. And whatever decisions we are making, let's make them remembering that our decisions will actually determine how the rest of us will get through this period with the existing of the mutants that are coming and everything. I don't want to call them by their names because now they've been assigned names. Yeah. Mawazo, very quickly, what's your thought as we close it? Because I don't know if you watched the broadcast by the president, but I did, and he spoke of extending the curfew.
Wow. If I actually spoke my mind about what I think about the Kenyan government's response to the COVID-19 vaccine pandemic in Kenya, I think your show would be shut off. What's happening is that, unfortunately, we have a president who is very eloquent. He knows how to talk. So a lot of people out here listen to him and say, oh, things are happening in Kenya. The Kenyan government is actually taking action. But that is basically a toothless dog. We are being fed lies. The government is talking like this, and then what is happening is the government is able to use these fake numbers and these policies that they're putting in to solicit for loans and get the loans and feed their friends so that we get more COVID millionaires when the rest of the populace is actually suffering. More Kenyans are dying of hunger during this time than COVID. More Kenyans are losing their jobs. Kenyans are languishing in poverty. When the MPs and their friends are continuing to party, right now they're lying to people that they're saying we're going to stop political gatherings for the next 30 days. Let's see how that's going to last. It's probably going to last maybe this week, because they're going to take advantage of the unfortunate stereotype of Kenyans having short memories. And then they're going to start all over again, not stopping reggae, which is an insult to us reggae fans. It is true that COVID-19 has impacted us negatively, especially people in the low economic classes in Kenya. And I really hope that the government will actually talk the talk and walk the walk, and not just continue to back orders and showing their muscles and not really doing anything about it. This is serious. We are just playing jokes with people's lives. People are really suffering, and that shouldn't be the case. We should actually put Kenyans first. And if we were to use the money that we are giving grants to the MCAs to buy vehicles, if we were to use that money to actually buy hospital beds, equip the ICUs in Kenya, in case we're going into phase 3 of COVID-19, it's going to be an even worse phase. And yet, this happens, and the Kenyan government, ever since the first day, there's really nothing concrete that has actually been put in place to mitigate against the effects of COVID-19 in Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why you see it is very difficult to convince a lot of people, especially in the villages and in the slums, that there's COVID-19 in Kenya when you see that the politicians are holding these rallies and then they're telling you that no, but you should actually stay home because COVID-19 only comes at night. It is silly. It is pretty silly. And
I will come back to you, Mawazo, but let's hear one more thing. And guys, this is nothing off topic. This is really in the interest of what we are doing because there are a lot of things happening, and we cannot just look like the proverbial ostriches. Victoria, you want to say something about your quarantine period, or you want just to say goodnight?
No, I just want to say goodnight for now. I really am getting to that point where the heart is willing, the spirit is very willing, but the body is weak. So I will say goodnight and that I love you and thank you for the conversation. And just as a parting shot, remember that we all bleed the same red blood. The uniqueness that makes us different nationalities, different tribes in our series of discrimination, um, different colors, skin color, different genders is what makes us unique. Far more than trying to fight against each other because of these differences that we have, we should try to find the uniqueness in each other and be able to use the uniqueness in each other for better so that we can be able to establish situations that are beneficial and we can be able to hold each other's hands throughout life and being able to go through life together. One of the hardest things to do is to sorry, not one of the hardest things to do, one of the best things to do is to rise by raising each other. And with all our differences, I mean, I'm dark skinned. Nyanduko, as you know, is very light skinned, and Ellie is from the tribe that eats so much. And I'm from the tribe that is considered to be very angry, or I don't know, whatever you all consider it to be. But instead of looking at that, look at it from a very, very different perspective. The Mount Kenya region and how we do our culture. If you notice that weddings are very, very different from culture to culture. You look at the Nigerian weddings, they are very extravagant. What can we look at from that and what can we learn from that? We are very much easygoing in terms of our weddings, but we do it in a specific way where Kikuyus wear beads and the Merus wear these crowns and so on and so forth. What can we learn from each other that we can be able to take and teach our children as well instead of taking things that make us fight? So that will be my parting shot. And remember to love. Love is the greatest thing and can overcome a lot. And with that said, I shall bid you farewell and good night. Thank you for today.
Thank you, Vicky. Do enjoy your short staycation and hope to see you back on the bench because things get warmer by day. Thank you. So Vicky just left because she needs a well-deserved rest out of the jet lag. Let me bring in Noreen, and we are discussing something a little bit extra on this show tonight because we say the last half an hour we will discuss more about what is happening back at home. The thing is, the president today, and this when I refer to the president, I refer to the president of Kenya, the Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta. Today announced a few more measures. I think 14 or so of them. I was listening in and I was like, I thought there were 3. They said that's the first one for this year. And one of them was the extension of the curfew. And apparently, according to Mawazo, as he is clearly anawaza kuhusu ya maneno hayamfurahishi. Noreen, what do you have to say about the speech of the president today?
Yeah, thank you so much, Eli. So, history ya curfew kwanza. Okay, for me, I think curfew, it's not a big deal to me because I come home early. I like my time alone in the house. But funny, curfew na going like curfew and during the day and at night, does it mean the spread of COVID-19 only happens at night? Because we have a whole day where people interact and all that, and at night less people are actually out. So I really don't get the hang of curfew thing, because like kama ni kuspread ina spread mchana, you know, not at night. Like, you know, it spreads throughout, but you don't specifically say at now from 10 p.m. you have to be in your house, because there are people outside there wanatembea. Even right now there are people outside there walking, and lazima ukuwe unajua mtu. I don't know. This is just what I think. Maybe you have to be knowing someone for you to be outside there. That one is just my statement. Yeah. Then actually I haven't watched the news today. I don't watch news on Fridays because of this show. But that's what I would say about the curfew thing. Yes.
Well, thank you, Noreen. Let me bring back Mawazo, and I know Mawazo, as much as you discuss fungi and bacteria and all those things, being a microbiologist, you have something to say about this, especially now that the president says he actually consults with the scientists that are there, and he listens to advice from all angles. And one thing that stood out from the president's speech, he mentioned that Kenya lost 560 billion in the financial year since the lockdown measures came into place. We only lost 560 billion in terms of an economy, GDP. What do you think of this? Especially if you remember, I talked about the 2 billion that disappears every time, which the president says it disappears daily. So what measure is killing what measure, Mawazo?
Well, it all comes down to corruption, right? Without corruption, even with the measures, Kenya would still be stable economic-wise, because we are losing more money through corruption than through the curfews. Because if the policies that are being put in place, because the government cannot put in policies that are going to work against it. If you actually read through the measures that they put in place, they talk about measures that are going to, the curfew, of course, which is, they say, is supposed to stop the spread of COVID. But then again, they talk about other measures that are going to promote the economy while combating COVID-19. Unfortunately, most of these measures that are supposed to be supporting the economy or supporting mostly the SMEs are never put in place. They're never actualized. They are just mentioned so that we actually think that things are being done. But when you talk to people, to the business people, they actually complain and they say, well, yes, the government said that they put these measures in place to help us to combat this. And this is not really trickling down to us. We're not really seeing that. We're not seeing that support from the government. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people will want to say that we are to blame and we shouldn't blame the government. But when we are faced with a pandemic, it is the role of the government to support its people. We put the government there to enact laws, to enact policies that will help us. It's not the other way around. Me as Mawazo, I cannot go there and enact a policy. It is up to the government to do that. So when we start fighting each other and not holding the people in authority to account for this, that is where we fail. We focus too much on politicking, and we forget that the function of government is not to politic. It is to administer the country. It is to rule this country and ensure that the country thrives, the economy thrives, the people thrive socially. This is the mandate we've given the government. So when I say Uhuru Kenyatta is failing, I'm not attacking Uhuru Kenyatta as a person. I'm saying he's failing in his mandate. What we put him there to do is not what he's doing. So he's failing the Kenyan people. We really should be focusing on holding the government, holding our MCAs, holding the MPs into account. If every constituency focused on that and asked their representative in government, what are you doing for us? What are you taking to talk to parliament when you're discussing things in parliament? What is your contribution in supporting us as your constituents? If we hold each of these MPs into account, then we're going to have a better country. But we can't just keep on saying, oh, it's about politics, it's about BBI, it's about this. No, if we do that, then we are killing ourselves.
As we kill ourselves, I know people will be wondering, what does this have to do with anything you're discussing? The whole point is we started a series called Discrimination, and our actions as a people, as a government, can end up discriminating against others with or without intention. And that's why it's important to reflect on this. For anybody that is joining, kindly let us have your idea, or rather what you think about this president's speech. If you didn't, we'll probably post a link later on to some of these discussions so that you can have a clue of what happened. But we are discussing the measures that the Kenyan government took, and one of them included extending of the curfew period and bringing down the political gatherings. And Noreen is back. Noreen, if you can hear us, can you get us now? Yeah, I
Yes.
believe so. So government imesema curfew ni ya usiku kwa sababu usiku ndio mnatafuta corona. But then what does that do to business owners, especially small entrepreneurs? In the same time, the government through the president was quick to defend its decisions by saying, despite all the economic hard times, Kenyan economy grew by 0.6% in comparison to other countries and nations in the European Union, for example, America, which were having negative, and generally around the world. Unafikiria nini kuhusu maneno? Has your economy grew by any chance, Noreen, as a person?
That is where I was going to. We are talking about the economy of the country.
Mm-hmm.
What about my own? What about my neighbors? Like the person that I stay right next to? Like we're just looking at a country as a whole, but now individuals are hurting within. Then we're looking at how Nairobi used to be busy before the curfew thing came into picture. Even at night, people could do business. And I'm sorry to say this, but kuna ile biashara ingine yenye people do at night, but that is how they feed their families, Then you're looking at a place like River Road. When I was looking at a certain documentary that was talking about, when we're talking about colorism and all that, we find that River Road used to be very busy, even at night. That was the best time for business. And people would go to shop there and get their products from there. They come sell in Uptown. So like it was so real, and it was kind of like it brought food on the table for most Kenyans. But right now, this is where we are. We are forced to be in the house at this time, and kuna hustle ya watu wengine yenye ivana usiku. This is the time that like people can travel from one place to another, maybe to move their products and do some business at a different place, maybe away from Nairobi or away from the place that they are, just to support their business. But sasa saizi, maybe you got your products right now and you want them sold by tomorrow. It means you have to wait until tomorrow morning for you to travel. Maybe if it's someone like me, I need to wait until in the morning. I travel for something like 8 hours or so to reach the destination before my stuff are being sold. So like I feel like business wise things have gone so down, and there is so much, it's so slow in terms of economic growth in Kenya. And for me, it is just not a vibe. It is not a vibe.
Thank you, Noreen. Mawazo, you want to say something more about this so-called 0.6% growth in our economy as a nation?
Um, I wouldn't really have much comment because I'm not sure whether those numbers are legit, and I'm not an economist, so I would be remiss to comment on that.
You still there, Mawazo?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I mean, we are just generally looking at it from the population perspective with no expertise at all. Do you feel that growth? Because last time I did I did remittance, because sometimes the way I can determine that we are doing well, it's based on how our shilling is performing against the euro, for example. I don't know how well yours has been performing, because for me, the euro seemed to be very strong for the moment against the shilling.
Oh yeah, it's true that the Kenyan shilling has been falling in relation to almost every other Western currency, and this might be reflective of the economy in Kenya and say that it's not growing, or on the other side, it might mean that the economies of these other nations is growing faster than Kenyans. So that could be a contributing factor. However, what I say, how we say it in Kenya, vitu kwa ground ni different. Because when the finance minister says that there's that growth, and nobody in your circles can actually tell you that I've seen a positive impact on my economic sense, it's just hearsay then. Because kama mama mboga anasema bado anaumia, na wewe unajua vizuri sana watu wote ambao wako kwa familia yako, marafiki zako wote, ukizungumza nao wanasema mimi naumia, sina shilingi mfukoni. Kila mtu anataka harambee. Mtu akiwa mgonjwa anahitaji usaidizi. Mtoto wake ako shule anahitaji usaidizi. Kila mtu ambaye unamjua. So tukisema ati there's a positive impact on our economy, and yet no one we know can actually attest to it, then definitely it's something that we are going to take with a pinch of salt.
As we take it with a pinch of salt, I want us to remember that it's been a year plus since these measurements came into play. And one of the measurements included, limiting the number of people gathering or increasing that number. And from today's announcement, the president equally said that this number, for example, if it's a funeral, one has to be buried between from the time death is confirmed, 72 hours. Hiyo story nitakana ikuwe imeisha. And then the other part is that only 100 people, close family, will have to attend the funeral, and including weddings and those religious and traditional celebrations. Let's go practicality of these things being done in our society. The 100 number, is it something practical? Noreen.
Because of the financial constraints that people are experiencing right now. For me, that is a yes. Like, why would I invite more than 100 people in my wedding and najua yenyewe aki nimejifinya? Like, for me, that one, if I were to wed today, that is an advantage on my side. Like, I'll not spend a lot, because like from where I come from, Luyas, there are people they like being together with one another. So in terms of kwenda matanga and weddings, so something like a wedding, I know if I announce my wedding today, and maybe there were no these restrictions because of COVID-19, all like most of them would flood in. You get because they don't care about invitation nini. Hawa ni mheshimiwa nzi. I'll invite. If you don't invite me, I'll invite myself. So right now because of the restrictions, utasema tu enyewe ningependa ukue. I would love, but because of this enyewe siuone tu view sasa. And no, so your haiwezi sema ati so and so did not invite me. That is what is happening. Unataka ukuje ushikwe? No, I don't want you to be I don't want you to be held captive, Then this other thing of okay, for me that is practical. Like it is practical if depending with the situation you are financial wise, Huwezi jiforce kuweka watu with a certain number that you know and you know and you know that you cannot afford. Then about the issue of funeral. Watu wa kwetu wanapenda matanga. Like wamesikia someone has died and they want to flood there because of because of the relationship they had with the person, or rather the relationship they had and how good that person was to them and what they meant to them. So where I come from, Mimi is only like I've never seen that because they'll just flood in. Yes. But
Thank
hiyo side ya wedding, that is practical, especially kama uko na shida ya pesa. That one I'll really vote for it. Yes.
So for the wedding, Noreen will vote it. Mawazo, do you think we are actually in the status of saying we can actually stop or move forward with these measures if you compare what is happening in Kenya and across the borders, Tanzania? Mawazo.
Well, as it is, the government has made the decision. The orders are going to stay, and we just have to work around them or work with them. The idea of the 3-day funeral, a funeral happening in exactly 3 days after someone passing, I was just discussing that with someone before I joined this meeting, and what she said was, who's going to pay the bills? Because oftentimes when someone passes in Kenya, there's a hospital bill that is waiting. So as the person lies in state in the morgue, we are raising funds for the hospital bill. We're raising funds for the funeral. So if we say that we're going to hold the funeral we must hold the funeral in 3 days, who's going to foot those bills? That's going to be a very big challenge. I understand that probably the reason behind it is that the government thinks that when people do a hurried funeral, not as many people will come or will attend, because you won't have enough time to rally people to attend that funeral or that wedding or wherever. But then again, as Noreen said, in the Luya Nation, if someone passes, you will not stop people from coming to that funeral. There's absolutely no way you're going to do it. Are you going to arrest all the 1,000 people who are going to attend that funeral? It's not practical to go to be able to do that. So I was talking to a friend of mine who is in Tanzania, and I was asking him, why is it that there are no stringent measures that have been put in by the government to curb the movement of people within Tanzania and people holding parties? Is there no COVID in Tanzania? And he said, well, there is COVID in Tanzania. It is true, there's COVID in Tanzania. We're not going to lie about it. However, the most important message that the government is pushing across, which unfortunately the media is not really capturing very well, is that the government says people should wear masks, people should self-isolate when they are diagnosed with COVID. The government is talking about people using hand sanitizers. What I heard from the Tanzanian president the other day when he was talking about people taking precautions when it comes to use of the foreign-made face masks, and he said he prefers if people use their just the masks, the locally made masks, because you can verify their integrity vis-a-vis using the ones that are coming from maybe China, because you're not so sure about their quality, particularly because right now we know a lot of unscrupulous businessmen are trying to just get anything, from out there to come and sell to the masses and say, hey, this is a mask, it's going to protect you, when it's not necessarily the case. So I think that's probably the reason why he feels that maybe using a cloth mask will offer you much more protection than that. But I think at the end of the day, I saw one of our viewers here actually commented, I think it's Gilbert, and he said that it is up to Kenyans to practice that self-discipline. And he says, if we as a people do not understand the severity of this disease when it's actually, you contract it, then we are the ones who are going to be doomed. So it is up to us to actually also ensure that we are washing our hands, and we're telling our children that they need to wash their hands, they need to cover their mouths when they're coughing. They just need to follow the advice of the World Health Organization when it comes to COVID-19. But when it comes to the government of Kenya's measures that they've been put in place, I feel oftentimes they just end up being abused, especially with the police arresting people just because you're not wearing a mask, and the same police officer is not also wearing a mask. So you wonder, maybe the police arrested the COVID that would have affected him and put it in jail before he came out.
Thank you, sir. Let me just try to have this conversation come to an end, because I know we are almost out of time, still 9 minutes or so. But with all those things happening, what do you think can be done different, or would have been done different from yourself, Noreen, as an individual, not as an expert, just as a commoner that actually lives day to day? What do you think should be done differently with our government?
First of all, our so-called leaders should lead by example, because you cannot tell me to do something like you're putting it the right way and yourself you're doing extremely contrary to what you're telling me to do. Like I'm like a child, like I'm like a child that is looking up to my mother or my guardian, and what they're doing is what I'll emulate. So whatever the government is telling us about the issue of political gatherings, honestly, for how long have they been talking about this? But how many political gatherings have been there? For instance, like last year, and this year it's even more crazy. Then you expect me, a normal mwananchi, I just sit there, because when you're calling for a political gathering, si ati ni nyuki wanaenda huko. It is me, and I'm being exposed to other people maybe who are affected by the virus. So how do you expect me to protect myself, and it's you calling me to that political gathering to listen to what you're saying? If I don't show up, who are you going to address?
I like that question, Noreen. Just let me ask Mawazo one thing. Mawazo, is it the politicians' fault or the population's fault? Because at this level, and this is also something I saw Gilbert mentioning, that it is not the politicians' blame because they politic to us. So if we go to attend these rallies, whose fault are we? Because if I was to call for a rally and nobody showed up, I will not talk to myself. What do you think, Mawazo?
Well, let's say this. You have asked people to stay indoors for quite a long time. People have lost their jobs. They cannot afford to go and participate in family gatherings because you've told them they shouldn't do that. And then you come in and hold a rally. And I remember the other day at one of the funerals, one of the politicians was commenting and said, some politicians actually went and paid mourners from one community and put them in a bus and took them to go to that funeral. 50 buses worth of full of mourners to go and cause disruptions, and so that the funeral is seen as having supporters of one politician more than the other. So you see, people are idle. They have nothing else to do right now. There are no jobs. So when you hear that so-and-so is coming to hold a rally and you're going to be paid 50 shillings, 100 shillings to go to the rally, of course, people will go. People need that money because they know what the politicians are around, handouts are around. Right now, people are looking for money. So they'll attend these rallies, not because they want to listen to what the politicians are saying, but it's just mostly because they are hoping to be able to get an opportunity to get something to go and feed themselves. That's part of the reason. So we can say that, hey, we can preach on the mountaintops and say, hey, Kenyans don't go to these rallies. But what's the alternative? Stay home and do nothing? And then your neighbor comes home and says, oh, nilienda kule, tulipatiwa 50 bob, tulipatiwa t-shirts, tulipatiwa kaunga. And you are back there just wallowing in your poverty. So this thing it's two-way, really. We're not saying the politicians are fully to blame. We as a people are also to blame in as much as the politicians are to blame. But what we have to understand is the politicians are in a leadership position. They are supposed to lead us. You cannot lead your sheep to the desert and expect to fatten them. That is basically what is happening. We're being led to the edge of the cliff, and then we're saying, oh, we're not supposed to follow leaders. Then why are they leaders?
Good question there. Why are they leaders? And that's the challenge that you are posing to everyone out there. If you think your leader is not really leading, take up the leadership position and be a leader from your own comfort, because sometimes respect is earned, yes, but power is taken. Closing remarks, Noreen.
Oh, wow. We've had a very long discussion, and I would really want to thank everybody that came just to have this conversation sink into them, and really appreciate it. We do not take this for granted. You really mean a lot to us. Akina Kiproroda, John, Fifi Pat, Suzlab, Susie, all of you. Like, thank you so much for joining us. And just as you know, we are always live every Friday from 10 p.m. Kenyan time, and Central European time, that is 9:30. Am I right, Eli? Yes. So asanteni sana. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for your comments. We really, really appreciate from the bottom of our hearts. Mbarikiwe sana. Thank you, Eli.
Mawazo, you want to say something before we go out?
Well, thank you so much for having me on your show today. As I said, I'm a great fan of your show. I try not to miss your shows. Unfortunately, I often have to watch the reruns because I'm at work at this time. It's a good day today. Was one of my day off. I actually went to get the COVID-19 vaccine, so everybody should get the COVID-19 vaccine. So thanks to everybody who sacrificed their time to be with us during this conversation. Sarah Njonjo, Rhoda Kipro, Joanne, have a good night. I'm responding to your message. And just everybody else who was part of this. I feel that it was a very good discussion. And if there's one thing that we need to take out of this conversation is what Victoria said before she left, light and love. Love is what keeps us all going. Be kind to one another, treat each other as brothers and sisters. Ask yourself, if somebody did this to me, how would I feel?
Thank you so much, Mawazo. I mean, each time I speak to you, I feel some wisdom trickling down. I hope Ladies, I've been loving this show. Thanks for coming on board tonight, Noreen, equally, and of course, Victoria, who left earlier on. Thank you so much for always making time. Remember, we have these conversations every single Friday from 10 p.m. Kenyan time. And next week, same place, same time. You never know what is coming. Remember to tune in. And the handles is Likuyani Eli. And you can find us equally on YouTube. That is the Arts in Heart official. You can find us on Instagram, the arts_in heart. And of course, send us an email. Let us know what you think about this discussion. Unfortunately, Nyanduko could not be able to make it to the show tonight. But of course, next week, she'll be here with all of us to discuss other matters. Tomorrow, catch me with Nyoka Bigamao as we discuss matters family in the family edition from 7:30 p.m. East Central European time, and that is 9:30 p.m. Kenyan time. We will be discussing in-laws and childbearing. You know, the debates that comes with it. And of course, on Sunday, I'll be with the lovely Noreen as she gives us her story, which we call Behind This Face. Do join me then. And I hope we're going to have an awesome weekend. All of us, remember to sanitize, stay away from corona. And if possible, remember, it takes you to change the world and make a difference. Till next time, I've been your host, Likuyani Eli. And of course, it's a wrap. See you then.
So every time that I'm by you, I'm gonna make an effort to secure your little insecurities. And every time you spend with me, nakuahidi utajua, utaamini.